Hello, friends. Deborah McIntyre here. I am a holistic health coach and naturopath. And in the 43 years I've been in the fitness and holistic health industry, I have helped thousands of people take control of their health and, learn to survive in a world that's getting uglier and uglier. And really the key to that is knowledge. Hey, Chelsea, glad you could join today. So knowledge really is power, and I want to help you to understand today about a really wicked virus called Epstein Barr. Some of you guys have heard of it, some of you guys have dealt with it, but I want to help you to understand all the ins and outs behind it so that you can knock it out of your life, get it to go dormant, and protect yourself. Thanks for sharing, Chelsea. All right, so let's dive in. I want you to understand first a little bit about viruses in general. What they do is they take over some of your cells and they use your own cells to replicate themselves. So that's how a virus gets a foothold in your body and begins to multiply. It's using you. It's like a parasite. We don't want that. All right, so the Epstein-Barr virus is actually one of the herpes family of viruses. And they're not all referred to as herpes viruses. Hey, Darlene, glad you could join. We're talking about that old nemesis Epstein-Barr virus. And you may or may not know it's actually one of the herpes viruses, the human herpes viruses. There's 9 of them that can affect us, 130 that affect, animals, other animals, but 9 for us. So what I want to do first is give you an overview of what the herpes viruses are, and we're going to zoom right in on Epstein-Barr. So I found this very fascinating that the name herpes comes from the Greek word, which means to creep. It's a creeper. It creeps up on you and it grabs your nervous system and doesn't want to let go. All these herpes viruses live in nerve tissue. So I'm going to be talking to you about what causes them to activate and what you can do to keep them dormant, which is the goal. Okay, so herpes viruses 1 and 2, those most people are familiar with. Herpes 1 is the fever blisters that you get, and then herpes 2 would be the genital outbreak of herpes. Herpes 3, you're familiar with, you just may not know it's one, it's called herpes 3, which is the zoster virus. Yeah, Darlene, they are all nasty. All those viruses are really, really trouble. So the herpes zoster virus is what's behind chickenpox when you're a kid, and then shingles when you get older. And oh my God, if you've ever had shingles, I personally have not, but I have dealt with many people who have. It is painful. It is a bugger. Now, where Epstein-Barr fits into the tale is herpes virus number 4. Epstein-Barr is the virus behind mono. So whenever you've had mono in your past, then you've had the herpes Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus number 4. Now, the thing of it is, it's estimated that about 80% of adults contain and carry the Epstein-Barr virus. So if you didn't have mono, how in the heck did you get this virus? Well, when it happens when you're a kid and your immune system is stronger, it's just one of those little viral episodes that kids have. They get sick for a few days, they run a little fever, they might get a little rash, you're thinking, what's going on here? And then boop, they're right back into action. And you go, well, that was a virus. But if you're compromised, then you get really sick. So a lot of people with mono are in bed, for 2 weeks, 4 weeks at a time. I remember high school seems to be a time when a lot of people get mono. It's a time when your hormones are fluctuating, and so your whole body is a little bit more vulnerable. And so anyway, you definitely see it come out. And when I'm doing someone's health history and I see mono appear, I know not only did they get the Epstein-Barr virus, but also their immune system was already compromised enough that the virus could really get nasty with them. Okay, let me tell you what some of the things Epstein-Barr can cause. Fibromyalgia is the one that you probably see the most often. And but in addition, a lot of the lymphomas, when when scientists look at some of the tumors of lymphomas, they commonly find the Epstein Barr virus. So they know, this is playing a role here. There is a type of cancer called nasal pharyngeal that affects like the back of your nose, and that also can have Epstein Barr at the root. And then there is a gastric or stomach cancer that can have Epstein Barr at the root. Crazy, who knew this virus can cause so much harm in the body? Now let's complete the list of herpes viruses because they're all important. Herpes virus number 5 is called cytomegalovirus, and it is very much like mono. It's not quite as severe. Like mono can cause your spleen to enlarge. It can cause your liver to get inflamed. It can kill you, if it gets out of control. Cytomegalovirus is a little bit less harmful than that, but it definitely gives you the same symptoms that mono does. Sore throat, fatigue, you get those swollen lymph glands in your neck, and that's the symptoms of mono. A lot of times people get misdiagnosed with strep because once you get mono, strep can certainly get a foothold. And I don't know if you guys saw, I shared an article that Joseph Mercola wrote about why people die from the flu, right? And it's not actually the flu virus they die from. It is an infection, another bacterial infection that comes after the flu. Well, that's the same thing that goes on here with the Epstein Barr virus with mono, and then the secondary strep. Thankfully, it's not enough to kill you, but it can make you really, really sick. And people have died from the spleen swelling and rupturing with Epstein Barr. Okay, so moving right along from cytomegalovirus, we get herpes virus 6A. And this is a virus that inflames nerve tissue. And that is behind a lot of neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. A lot of times you don't think that there could be a virus as a player in this thing. And yeah, Darlene, all of these things are super nasty. And, once you have them, you have them. And, we want to protect you. We want to keep them dormant, right? Don't let them rear their head. Now, herpes virus 6B is causes childhood roseola. You get a little fine rash in the body and the child is sick for a few days, runs a bit of a fever, and then it's gone. That one's not really that harmful. And interestingly, neither is oral or genital herpes. People flip out about it, but it's not one of those that can cause bigger problems the way Epstein Barr and some of these other viruses can. So it's a pain in the neck. It's not fun, but it's not life-threatening. Now, the one thing though, I will tell you, I'm shaking my finger here, anytime you have viruses in your body, it makes you more vulnerable to other viruses. So, we got that flu going around. If you've got mono in your history, just know you're a bit more of a target for the flu or any other virus. And so you definitely want to take all the steps. I've streamed about it and written about it. You can see, elsewhere on the Facebook page, lots and lots of tips to protect the flu. All right, herpes virus 7. Also causes roseola in kids, but it's a little more harmful. It can cause febrile seizures, which is when a child runs a fever and then will have seizures from getting the fever. And interestingly, I generally treat viruses anytime I'm working with somebody who has a seizure disorder, and it really, really makes a big difference in their case. Okay, finally, human herpes virus number 8 is the one behind Kaposi sarcoma. You may have heard of that. It comes along, it's a cancer, a skin cancer that comes along usually with people who have AIDS. And so, there you go. It's another link between viruses and cancer. Well, that's all the good news. Hey, Andrea, glad you could join. We're talking about the Epstein Barr virus, and I just gave a list of all the human herpes viruses and some things they can be behind. So let's talk about how this virus is transmitted. Get my notes so I'm sure I don't forget anything. So mostly saliva. All right, so you got to teach your kids, don't drink after each other and so forth, because interestingly, you catch and pass on the Epstein Barr virus weeks before you ever get a symptom. So, you know, let's say you're on a sports team in high school, or you're in college studying for a test or something like that, and you've got the virus. You're spreading it to any friend who drinks after you, kisses you. They call it the kissing disease, you know, that kind of thing. But there are other ways you can spread it as well. You can spread it through blood, so transfusions, cuts that you come into contact with when you have open skin, semen, so it's sexually transmitted as well. And I mentioned that you can spread it around for many weeks before you ever see a symptom. So no wonder 80% of people, you know, when you do a blood test for the antibodies to Epstein Barr virus. So it's a very, very common one. Now, I'm not going to dive into this too much, but I want you to be aware of it, is that a lot of viruses are used to splice other viruses, sort of piggyback other viruses on them, so that when you get a vaccine, that's how they introduce that secondary virus. So a lot of people look back, you know, there was a monkey virus that spread cytomegalovirus virus through the human population. Of course, a lot of controversy about it, as there always is. And oh, Chelsea Williams got to kiss some girls. Come on, just don't drink after them. You could have a quarantine period, you know, for 6 weeks before you swap saliva. So anyway, blood tests show, actually I was wrong, it's not 80%, it's 90%. 9 out of 10 adults test positive for having been exposed to Epstein Barr. And so it's a rampant problem. You know, even if you didn't have mono, you probably have this virus. So I want to talk about, why does it really get some people and they just constantly battle it, like in the case of fibromyalgia? And why do some people, you know, get it as just a little thing? They're sick for a couple of days and then poof, they never, you know, think about it again. And it all comes down to the condition of your nervous system. Because remember, that's where these viruses live. So your nervous system is your brain and your spine and the nerves that run all over your body, right? And I want to go over the main things that stress the nervous system. So I'm going to post some of these in the comments. So nervous system stress activates. Whoop, I got to learn to talk and spell at the same time. Andrea, you may have to be my number 2. You may have to do these streams with me. Andrea is a new employee at the office. I'm apprenticing her to follow and fill my shoes and help me out and so forth. So I'm really happy she's here. But maybe she can be my typer while I'm my talker. She's a good typer. Okay, so nervous system stress activates EBV, which is Epstein Barr virus. And so I'm going to list what different things stress the nervous system. So one would be physical stress. I cannot tell you how many times I do a history with someone with fibromyalgia and they have a car accident within a few months of the activation of their symptoms of fibromyalgia. You know, and it's easy to say, well, I got shaken up in this car accident. That's why my muscles are sore. But gosh, it's taken me such a long time to get over this thing. You know, what's going on? And then as time goes on, they really don't get well and get eventually a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. But there are other physical stresses besides a car accident. Childbirth is one. Childbirth is a huge one. You know, anybody that's born one, you know, that's a pretty big physical stress to your body. Dental work can be one. You know, any kind of accident or injury or surgery even can be a big stress to the nervous system. So don't underestimate what those kinds of stresses can do to activate that Epstein Barr. Remember, it sits dormant in your nerve tissue. Something comes along to activate it and cause you trouble. Oh Lord, Chelsea, yeah, 4 car accidents, not good. Not good. You need like a big red car with flashing lights or something like that. Okay, so besides physical stress, the other one that I have kind of alluded to, but I'm going to put it in the comments, is other viruses. And that also includes viruses that you get from vaccines. And of course, I'm not going to delve into the whole vaccine thing very much here. Just know when you get vaccines, you are putting other viruses into your body along with other toxins that can irritate your nerves. All right, so the next one that can make you vulnerable, oh my gosh, this is a huge one. My old nemesis, mold. Mold can come about in many, many different circumstances. You know, leaks in your home, your car can have mold, all kinds of places to be exposed to mold. And, you know, guys, those of us living in the Atlanta area, we're just moldy. Hey, Maria, glad you could join. Hey, Angela, glad you could be here. So mold is huge where we live. It's just in the environment. And so even if you keep your house pristine, if you have an animal, you know, that goes outside and runs around and plays in the leaves and so forth, and then comes in, they bring mold into the house. And in fact, I have people test for mold a lot of times because it can be an interference factor in healing. And when I have them even test the dog's fur, and it's shocking. Sometimes that's the biggest area of mold exposure. Now, don't get rid of your dog. You know, we love them, but you can treat the dog with some certain essential oil products to get rid of the mold. Just private message me if you have that as a concern, and I could give you more information about that. But mold is a neurotoxin. Mold is toxic to the nervous system, so it can Felicia, good realization. Yes. Yeah. So see, childbirth is a beautiful, beautiful thing, but it is also a big physical stress to the body, and it can trigger fibromyalgia. Glad you had that light bulb going off. So anyway, all of the things that I'm mentioning here in the comments cumulatively affect the nervous system. So if childbirth is the only thing you ever did to stress your nervous system, it's probably not going to activate the fibro unless you have like a traumatic type of birth situation that's, you know, an even bigger physical stress. But, you know, guys, as I go down this list, you're going to realize there's no way to avoid having some of these things come in. So you got to know how to detox them out of your body, protect yourself as much as you can. And then at the end, I'm going to teach you how to shore up your nervous system so that you don't just have to be the effect of all these things in your environment. You can actually be proactive, that even though you're hit with these things, you're going to be, you know, you've got some defense against them. So mold is a super biggie. Next, let's talk about food chemicals, because there's two food chemicals that really, really irritate your nerves. One is artificial sweeteners. And, you know, that's diet things, sugar-free things. And people, even sugar-free gum, you know, we take it for granted. Oh, sugar-free gum, this is good for my teeth because I'm not chewing on sugar. But we don't even think about, oh my gosh, I'm a gum chewer. I'm exposing myself to these toxic chemicals every day. You can get beautiful gum now. It used to be when they first came out with health food gum, it was like, okay, thank you, but I'm spitting it out in about 30 seconds. But they've really come a long way. So search in your health food store, you'll get gums flavored with xylitol, and they're much, much better, and they will not irritate your nerves. So artificial sweeteners is the one, and then MSG is the other one. So those are the two main food triggers of nervous system distress. Now, MSG is a tricky one. It hides in lots and lots of things, mostly processed foods, a lot of restaurant foods. And you'll see a lot of restaurants will say we don't add MSG, but it's interesting that MSG is a component of some of the sauces and so forth that they might use in food. So you do have to be cautious when you're eating out. I can guarantee you every fast food restaurant on the planet has MSG. Well, I'm not going to say on the planet, in the US has MSG in their food. Lots of other countries can have the same fast food chains that we have in the US, and they use far, far, far fewer, if any, chemicals in making the food. That's another rant for another day, but you guys know it's different here. The US, we really, really are inundated. Okay, let's talk about the next thing that stresses the nervous system, which is heavy metals. And Angela, I'm just seeing your comment. I do have a list of hidden MSGs. If you will private message me, I will find that and get it out. And in fact, I may even just, I don't know if I could post it because anyway, I'll figure it out. PM me and I will get you a list of where MSG hides. And it's not that you need to know like what foods, because that would be, you know, a 20-page article. What you need to know is the different names that MSG hides under so that you can look and read the label and see. Now, Andrea might be able to tell us, she told me about a great app and it's called Think Dirty. And the Think Dirty app is really, really nice because what you can do is you can use it to scan the barcode on an item while you're shopping. And then that barcode will tell the app what kind of things are in that food so you can avoid the bad stuff and, you know, stick with the good stuff. So possibly that app deals with MSG. I'm not 100% on that yet, but at least it does deal with a lot of other things. Now, heavy metals. Oh, hey, Mona, glad you could join. We're talking about viruses, in particular the Epstein Barr virus, because it is one nasty little bugger. So heavy metals are another thing that irritate your nerve tissue. And you guys, we are inundated with heavy metals, auto exhaust, air pollution, aluminum cans that we drink out of, aluminum cookware. Used to be, when I was coming along, everybody had a mouthful of those silver fillings, right? Thank goodness they don't do that so much anymore. But a lot of people, you guys, you had silver fillings in your mouth. And those of you who are young enough to not have had the silver fillings that are about 50% mercury, your moms probably had them. So you get it in utero. And you also get it if you were breastfed, you get more of it. So it's quite the problem that we face in this modern world, heavy metals. So I will stream in the future more about detoxifying. That's one of the big things you want to do to get heavy metals out. But in the meantime, eat lots of organic veggies because minerals help. Metals and minerals compete for your body to uptake them. So when you get lots of minerals in your system, you won't uptake as many heavy metals. And when you're detoxing the heavy metals, extra minerals help you as well. And there's lots of mineral supplements that you can take that will augment your veggies, but nothing takes the place of veggies every day. You got to eat your veggies. Okay, so let's talk about the next category, which is one of my favorites, is electromagnetic fields. Oh my gosh, it is almost impossible. It really is impossible to get away from them unless you just go out into the boonies, okay? Behind me, I always feel like I'm a part of the Alaska Chamber of Commerce, you know, streaming with this picture. But it's a picture that was taken on a trip that I went on about 6 years ago going to Alaska. Lots of places there where you can't get cell phone reception, computer reception, no Wi-Fi. So there are remote places where there's no electromagnetic fields. But those of us living around the city, man, those EMFs are everywhere. You cannot escape all of them. You just have to minimize what you're around. But those EMFs, you know, they're constantly irritating our nerves, right? So we do want to minimize, especially in the sleeping environment. Okay, how am I doing on time? Good, because I want to be sure and get to the cures. You know, I want to list all the bad stuff, but I want to get to the good stuff. Okay, the last category I want to talk about that really, really irritates your nerves and allows a virus like Epstein Barr to express in your body, keep that fibromyalgia going. Like all of these things, that's what they do. Once you have fibromyalgia, you have to minimize these things or you're just going to constantly battle it. So the last one I'm going to talk about is pesticides. And pesticides work by destroying the central nervous system of a bug. And so even though it doesn't kill us, it definitely destroys nerve cells in our body and creates irritation on the nerves. So you don't want to have the bug guy spray inside your home. I've streamed other things about this. You can look at other videos and get good information on what to do instead of pesticides. But you got to think about your lawns as well, because your lawn care could have pesticides in it. And then sometimes you can be the healthiest person around and not use any of that stuff. But like, for example, when the Zika virus and the West Nile virus scares were going around, the government would just, you know, at night while you're sleeping, go around and spew pesticides in the atmosphere just to try to control mosquitoes. So sometimes you can't protect yourself, but you want to do everything you can to minimize what you're around. Okay, bad news over. Now it's time for the good news. What can you do to shore yourself up in the face of all these insults that we've just talked about and keep that virus dormant in your body? Because remember, we're talking about Epstein Barr, but all the other human herpes viruses that I talked about, they relate too. So if you get fever blisters, or you don't want to get shingles later in life, all of this relates. You got to keep the nervous system healthy. Okay. Hey, Lisa, glad you could join. So let's talk about the first thing. Hey, Amanda, glad you could join. We're talking about Epstein Barr and all the other human herpes viruses and how they live in nerve tissue, and all the things I posted in the comments will irritate your nerves and allow these things to express. So now let's get on to how to protect yourself. Okay, the first thing is know your vitamin D. Whoop. Know your vitamin D number. All right. That vitamin D is not enough. I'll have people that constantly tell me, oh, I take 2,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. Well, that sounds good, but if you're really, really low, it's not going to be enough to get you where you need to be. And some people process it differently than others. So I've seen people that 2,000 IUs a day gets them in a beautiful range, and 8,000 a day doesn't quite get them where they need to be. So you need to know that number and adjust your dose according, right? So what is the optimal number? So optimal vitamin D is between 60 and 80. So if you have fibromyalgia, if you have fever blisters, if you fight with any of these herpes viruses, get that vitamin D number between 60 and 80, because the range is big, 30 to 100. So you could be 32, and your medical doctor thinks your vitamin D is fine. So never accept fine or normal as an answer to your question of what's my vitamin D level. You actually want a number. Okay, so that's number one. Excellent. Glad it's helping, Lisa. Number two, and this is fun, because physical stress is one of the big things that can activate a virus, things like massage, chiropractic, yoga, and just stretching. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can just do things yourself at home to keep your body limber and keep your body flexible. And that really, really helps the nervous system, like more than I have time to go into. It's incredible what a flexible nervous system does to help protect you from these things. Okay, so let's talk about the next category, which would be nutrition. So vitamin B12 is really, really important. And B12 is sort of like D. You can be well within a normal range, but not have your nerves fully protected. So B12 should be at the top of the normal range. Some people do not absorb vitamin B12 very well. And so it's very important that you look at the label. If you're going to add a vitamin B12 to your regimen, look at the label. You want to have the first part of the word be methyl. So methyl is what you're looking for. So methylcobalamin is the big long name for vitamin B12, but a lot of products are cyanocobalamin, and a lot of people can't process those. So you definitely want that. And then you also want methylated folate. Because B12 and folate work hand in hand. So what they do, the reason I'm talking about vitamin B12 and vitamin D is that you have an insulation on your nerves called myelin. And if you know anybody with MS, you know that's a disease where the myelin begins to be destroyed. You get these plaque formations or destructive areas on the myelin. But the easy way to understand it is just like if you've ever seen a wire in your house, you know, something be wired. If you look at that wire, it's got the metal wire in the middle, and then it's got a little insulating you know, cover, and then the whole thing is covered by the outside of the cord. So that insulation is very much like the myelin in your own body. And because the nerves or the viruses live in that nerve tissue, if that myelin is weak, that virus has a super easy time expressing. So you definitely want to look at those two vitamins for the myelin. And then another, oh yeah, the methyl B12 is really good by Jarrow. That's what I give with patients too. And I give the one that has folate in it as well, because sometimes you really need both to do the job. So I'm glad you found that, Mona. Okay, let's see, the other vitamin I want to talk about is magnesium. Okay, magnesium is helpful because it just calms the nerves, right? It relaxes the nerves. We have, I mean, look at that whole list of things that can irritate your nerves that I mentioned earlier. We're around them all the time. Our nerves are being irritated constantly. So magnesium becomes super, super important. And most people are deficient in magnesium. Should be abundant in the soil. It's not anymore. So most of us really need some supplementation to do our best. You got to watch out with that, though. It can loosen up your bowels. So start slow, work up gradually. Okay, so that handles the nutritional part to protect yourself from these viruses. Now, I want to talk about other natural things that, you know, guys, sometimes it's the super, super simple things that have the biggest impact on our health. And so when I say things like sunshine, you think, yeah, sunshine feels good. But sunshine actually facilitates so much activity in your body. It's so essential for our survival. Lots of times when we go out, we slather ourselves with so much sunscreen, it's hard even for anything to get through. So it is important to have some sun exposure that's just a natural sun exposure. You don't want to go out there and burn, right? But 10 or 15 minutes in the morning or the evening, not when the sun's at its most intense, is super, super healthy. So I'm going to list sunshine. Yes, Sharon has a very good comment here. I understand that folate is preferred over folic acid. Does this have something to do with absorption? Absolutely. So the form of the nutrition that you take is super, super important. So folate is important, and a methylated folate is important. So Mona mentioned a company called Jarrow, Jarro. They make a really good B12 folate product where both of them are methylated, and that's the name of it, methyl B12 methylfolate, and it's fabulous. So I'm really glad you asked that question, because yes, that is important. And you know, nutrition science comes along, right? You started hearing a lot about folic acid years ago when they realized that deficiencies would cause neural tube defects in babies, right? A birth defect. And so the recommendation started to be, you know, all pregnant women, you know, take 800 milligrams of folic acid during pregnancy. But now, you know, as Sharon pointed out, now research has shown, again, you want the folate more than the folic acid, and your body is going to use that. It's more like what you're used to using in food. So that's really, really important. Okay, so let me put down some of the other natural things that are so, so important. Friends, hanging out with your friends, laughter. You guys do not underestimate this. If you are having a hard time and you meet up with a friend and you go for a walk in the park and you just chat and you laugh, you don't talk about your problems, but you talk about good things. Oh my gosh, you feel like a new person when you're done. These things cause hormone changes in your body and chemical changes in your body that actually help your nerve tissue. So they're super simple, but they're very, very basic. You guys, we're so busy now and we're so disconnected, most of us, that it's like it takes a special occasion to sit down with friends and family. It's not the thing that we just have time and take time to do. We're just so busy. Or a lot of times people think, oh gosh, I'm wasting time. A lot of younger people talk about hanging out, right? And I used to think, oh, what a waste of time. I got more important things to do than hanging out. But as I've matured, and realized the importance of relationships and the importance of love and conversation and laughter, I see what it does for the body. So you guys have my permission and my RX to go enjoy a nice dinner with somebody and have some laughs. Okay, so the final thing I want to mention that's going to be protective of your nervous system comes with a caveat for people who do have fibromyalgia, and that is exercise. So when you exercise actually is a stress to your body. Happy to hang out, Chelsea. I look forward to it. Exercise is a stress, but it also releases hormones and helps to de-stress your body. So the trick is, if you have fibromyalgia, you have probably learned by now, there is a line in the sand when it comes to physical activity. If you cross that line and do too much, that's actually one of my key questions to determine if someone really has fibromyalgia. I'll say, if you're not feeling well and you just make yourself go and do a good hard workout, does it make you feel better? Or does it make you feel worse and maybe even put you on the couch for a while? And if it makes you feel worse, that's where I start to go, this is probably fibromyalgia. So you have to respect the line in the sand as you're healing with fibro, and you have to go up to that line, but recognize it can shift. So if other things are stressing your body, what you did last week might not be appropriate this week. You just have to learn to go with that flow of where that line is and go up to it, but do not cross over it. And if you have fibro, you know what that is. You've experienced it, and just don't force yourself to go over it. Now, Chelsea asks a really, really good question. Is there a test for fibromyalgia? There really isn't a test. There are symptoms. There are things that you can do that help to confirm it. Like, for example, there are pressure points on the body called trigger points that commonly get really, really sore if a person has fibromyalgia. So if you push, and you can just Google it, it's very easy to find. Fibromyalgia trigger points, you'll come up with the locations, but you can push on those points and they can be very, very tender. Now, I have had other people that didn't have fibro have those points be tender too. But fibromyalgia, first of all, as a naturopath, I really don't have to diagnose a condition. I more, quote unquote, diagnose what stresses has the body been through, what condition is the body in, what's the history, and what do I do to start undoing and just supporting you where you need to be supported. So basically, out with the bad, in with the good. So whether technically it's fibromyalgia or not, I don't have to determine, because it doesn't affect how I would treat a person. I'm going to treat them the same way, what I see in the history, what I see in the tests when I run tests. And then, Chelsea says, it's hard to find that line when working out. And some people do have a hard time with that. You have to take note when it happens and then just know. I will tell you guys, and this may not be a popular view, But what I have found is that super intense exercise is not the best for people who have fibro. So your Orange Theory, your trainer that just cracks the whip, and pushes you to go further than where you're. I don't even want to say your comfort level, because you can push past your comfort level. Your comfort level might be sitting on the couch, right? You may have to push past that. But to really, really go hardcore is commonly not the best for people with fibromyalgia. You can definitely strength train, you can definitely exercise, but you have to build up to it and heal yourself and get yourself stronger. And then that line gets further and further out, and you can do more and more without crossing that line. So guys, I hope this has been very helpful to everybody. I am actually writing a book on fibromyalgia now, so give me a little bit of time to get it all together, but I'm also working on a workbook to go with it so that people who maybe don't see me as a patient can still have a checklist of things they need to do and what they need to pay attention to stay healthy. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for your likes and your hearts and your comments. I really, really treasure these Thursday times with you guys. And I hope you can join me next week at 12:30. Okay, have a good week.